I feel so confident about Emu's identity in this video that I have to phrase it as if it's a spoiler. At the very least, it's a spoiler for, Egghead and Alabath. It is the final chapters of One Piece, so it makes sense that we're going to be spoiling everything that's happened throughout the series, right? So if you're not a bit caught up, this will be a spoiler. My name is Jacob Clark. I'm a 20-year One Piece fan, and now that One Piece is ending, I want to see it through, be part of the community, build, engage, that kind of stuff, right? So I think this is a pretty. I honestly feel like this is so on the nose for what Emu's identity actually is. So let's look at the common theories. We typically see, because we know Oda, right? We know how he draws, how he designs women. For the most part, most people tend to think that Emu is a woman. I think it's because we've seen their hands. They're very feminine hands, very slender hands, right? As represented by this image in the first one, right, where it's a very feminine figure, right? And all we see is like it's a basic woman, right? Because Oda only has like two ways of drawing female characters. He has like super sexy, generic. They all, for the most part, look the same, even though there are differences and uniquenesses. They are largely similar. Uh, or they have like the old bag, right? That's basically the two settings, right? Next, we have like this the character like this like the super hype or a demon, right? Where it's like if Emu isn't going to be a woman, they're going to make him a guy, and there's if he's a guy, there's no way he's going to be a joke character. So he has to be like hyper badass. So how badass can Emu be underneath that cloak, right? And then you have the third one, right, which I think is more on the nose, where it has three eyes, right? All right. So I think the three-eyed stuff is on the nose, but let's get into the brass tacks. Let's talk about who I think Emu's true identity is, at least who their inspiration is Hecate, god of the night, god of magic, witchcraft, necromancy, the moon and its phases, ghosts, the spirit world, and crossroads and boundaries, right? And was granted dominion over heaven, land, and the underworld. And if you can't draw the illusion where, all right, heaven, land, and underworld, Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus, like, can you not see the parallels here just from that alone? Because keep in mind, Hecate was granted dominion over the heaven, land, underworld by Zeus himself over Hecate's role in the Titanomachy, which was a great war that happened between the Titans and the gods. And Hecate sided with the gods, sided with Zeus, right? And Hecate notably has three bodies or three heads, right? And as you can see, in one hand they hold a key, a dagger. Two hands they hold a torch. At their side are two loyal wolves, and behind them is a giant moon, right? And the moon, the night, I feel like that's pretty fitting for something that can oppose Luffy, the sun god, right? So next, I want to get into the symbols of Hecate real quick. All right, I think this is pretty interesting. This is part of the theory where you're like, all right, this starts to look pretty legit, right? So first and foremost, Hecate's symbol is symbolized by the triple moon and the number three, right? So the number three in One Piece is already super important, right? You have three devil fruit types, right? You have three hockey types. You have the three eras that are represented throughout the Void period and the original ancient war, right? You have, you know, Shamrock's Cerberus, who keep a three-headed dog, because this actually hits a couple things right quick, right? So like two symbols of Hecate are dogs and number three, and Moon is actually associated with dogs as well, right? So Cerberus, the guardian of the underworld in Greek mythology, right? This is a major. Everyone knows Cerberus. This has been a major theory for a long time, largely because we've assumed that maybe the three-headed skulls on Blackbeard's Jolly Roger, maybe that means that he'll get like a Cerberus devil fruit, or he ate a Cerberus devil fruit, and that's how he can eat multiple devil fruit types, right? But ultimately, dogs and the underworld are associated with Hecate, right? Hecate is actually greatly associated with the Cerberus, right? Due to her role over multiple dominions, she can pass freely, right? Like her Cerberus is that's her homie, right? That's her dog, right? Now let's also look into daggers real quick because this is a simple one, right? One of the only times we've seen Emu actually using a weapon, right? We can say this is Emu using a dagger to cut up Luffy, Blackbeard, and Shirahoshi's pictures, right? And let's run this back real quick, right? There's three of them in this that she's cutting up, right? She's not cutting up Lily's picture, mind you. She's cutting up Emu. She's cutting up Luffy, Blackbeard, and Shirahoshi's pictures, right? Shirahoshi is Poseidon. She has dominion over the seas, right? Luffy is the god of the sun. You could say that he has dominion over the heavens, right? And then Blackbeard is the god of he's the opposite, right? You could say that he's the god of the underworld, all right? Which once again speaks to Hecate's dominion over all three realms, right? All right. One of the other symbols that we've seen, let's talk about three real quick. Let's talk about snakes, dogs, and keys, because we've actually seen all three of those in quick succession in Elbath, right? So we see Scopper Gaban with, he actually defends a key, right? And the key, if you look at if you look at the key, right, the key is, um, it's the key to the underworld actually. So Hecate is associated with the key to the underworld, right? And Gaban is actually, he was acting as a barrier. He was holding the key that would allow Luffy and them to go free Loki, who was in the underworld. So you can very easily say that what Scopper was holding was the key to the underworld, right? And if you're caught up in the most recent chapters, we see that Emu herself actually arrives on Elbath shortly after, right? So we have dogs, we have keys, we have daggers, you know, we have serpents, we have snakes, right? So the symbol here, the golden one with the snake and all those intricate designs. So that's a snake wrapped around a star, a sun, all right? Isn't that kind of interesting? So that's Hecate's symbol. It's a snake wrapped around the sun. Hecate is heavily associated with snakes and serpents. Now that we're in Elbath, right, where we know that the giants themselves, they reference the giant serpent soaked in blood, which points us to the idea of Jormungandr, the world serpent, wrapping its tail around the world, right? And so, and the fact that, look real quick, the fact that if we're talking about like a giant serpent, right? We're talking about giant serpent. The fact that Amazon Lily, really associated with serpents, has Boa Hancock, who is the Gorgon, right? Represents the Gorgon, right? The three sisters of Gorgon, who can petrify, right? So let's say, and Medusa herself is a Greek myth as well, right? Because like there's part of the tricky part about being like, all right, we're talking about Hecate. Why is it Hecate in particular, right? Because like there's multiple gods and dominions. Because even like the Jormungandr, that's Norse, right? There's multiple gods that you can be talking about. Why Hecate? I feel like this is a lot of evidence right here. We're seeing a lot triple moons. Number three, you know how big the number three is in One Piece, right? The dagger, right? One of the only weapons we've seen Emu themselves actually use, right? Dogs. Shamrock, who has the power of Emu flowing through him in some way, right? Who has a Cerberus, a dog, a three-headed dog, who's greatly associated with Hecate in Greek mythology, right? We see Gaban holding this giant key to the underworld to free Loki, right? Hecate is associated with keys. She's associated as the key. She's the master of keys, right? And then we see all these the serpent imagery, the serpent wrapped around the sun, right? So Hecate actually has a few interesting powers. We're going to talk about the powers of Hecate real quick. For one, Hecate is associated with the power of prophecy, right? Greatly associated with the power of prophecy, where Luffy is said to be the one to destroy the Red Line, to destroy Fishman Island, right? And Future Sight, once again, with Gaban being able to see the future. There's characters like Mihawk, who his proto epithet was the clairvoyant, which is to see the future, right? Which parallels Shanks' ability to see the future. And Shanks is associated with Shamrock, right? Who's associated with the God's Knight. So he's a former God's Knight, right? We see Emu's ability to take away life, but also grant life, right? Hecate's abilities are Hecate has dominion over the power of life and death, right? Hecate has the power over the barrier between, is the in between. The power of the abyss itself is so on the nose for what Hecate can do based on Hecate's power set in Greek mythology, right? The circles themselves, the magic circles themselves, are huge. The magic circle also, real quick, can you point at just how horrifying all this imagery is? Just like talking about it, but also the fact that like it is just horrifying, right? But the magic circles, where we first saw them back when they were used to summon Brook, right? Who we're now seeing associated with Gunko, who is heavily associated with Emu themselves, right? And Brook was the one who went from, he died and came back to life, right? And now his storyline is coming to full circle with Gunko's, right? Who's associated with the God's Knights, with Emu, who are able to bypass life in some way, right? We see these magic circles. Magic circles are the the god of magic circles is Hecate. The god of magic circles is Hecate. She's the god of witchcraft, god of night, god of darkness, god of magic. And the whole reason why I got set onto the path of Hecate in the first place, in particular, is due to Vegapunk, the world's smartest man, right? He made a point to mark out how I will not apply the labels of good and evil at all, in fact, right? He made the point to highlight that Hecate is notably not good nor evil. They go in between. They're the god of crossroads, right? One Piece as a whole is a series of gray morality, right? This is the reason why pirates, which are traditionally bad, are the protagonists, the good guys, and Marines, the Navy, the Army, good, are portrayed as the opposition, the antagonists, right? They're corrupt, right? Hecate embodies that. It makes sense for, okay, think I should have included this. Aokiji versus Akainu. Akainu, another dog, actually. Another dog, right? And the three admirals. I didn't even mention that. And the fact that Zoro has three swords, right? And the fact that he's the king of hell, so him superseding Inu actually would have some narrative importance, right? But I actually should have included that the god of the crossroads, all of the admirals are at a crossroad, right? All of the admirals are. So Emu, who represents the world government, who the Navy works under, right? They're all at a crossroads, right? Aokiji is such a fantastic example of character at a crossroad. Um, and I also want to real quick, I just want to end this off by tying this into some of the connections into the story, right? So we have Shamrock, we have Blackbeard, we have Blackbeard's insignia, the Jolly Roger, the connection with the three, and then we have the three phases of the Harley text, right? So the fact that we're seeing all these threes, the fact that, because I think that Hecate, right? I think that the way that Oda is playing in our face, right? Like when the veil comes down and it'll be multiple faces, I think Oda's playing in our face because the one thing that's established is the eyes. So it has to be like a joke on that, right? I think that it'll be three eyes. The three is huge, right? I think it's possible that Hecate Emu will likely have the powers of a Logia, Paramecia, and a Zoan all combined into one body, right? And this is symbolized, right, by the fact that we have the Cerberus Shamrock. Keep in mind, a shamrock isn't just a clover, right? A shamrock isn't just a clover. A shamrock is a three-leafed clover always. Always. Shamrocks were actually used historically. The reason why we have St. Patrick's Day, actually, is because the shamrock, the three-leaf clover, was used to teach by St. Patrick to teach Christianity the idea of the Holy Trinity to the Irish. That's the whole reason why we have St. Patrick's Day, with the Lucky Charms, all that kind of stuff. The 3-leaf clover, and once again, let's go look at the key real quick that Gaban has, that Scopper Gaban has like, it's like a 3-leafed clover kind of key, which is the same one that we see associated with if you look at the symbols of Hecate in the middle there. It's a 3-leaf clover kind of key, right? And the fact that his name is Shamrock, which is that's not Oda doesn't do things unintentionally. Shamrocks they were designed by it was used by St. Patrick to share the ideology of the Holy Trinity to the Irish. That's why we have St. Patrick's Day. All right. I believe that at the very least, Blackbeard is aware of this, right? Aware of Emu's identity as a 3-headed person, right? That's why his goal to become king of the world, right, is to have Emu's skulls dead, right, and taking it for himself. When it comes to the Harley text, which is set up in 3 different images, right, where it's in the past, present, and future, keep in mind, Hecate has the ability to see the past, present, and future. You can even see it in Jolly Roger, actually, where it's kind of like looking at, like, directly at you, looking forward, and looking behind, right? And Blackbeard is an archaeologist, so he's very deeply entwined with the past, but he's always looking forward ahead, right? And the fact that we have the great serpent breathing fire in the Harley text, symbolized by the moon, right? Symbolized by 3 phases. Okay, like, is this not adding up to being like a conclusive deduction that I think that Emu is based on Hecate. I think that I believe that Emu's true identity is based on Hecate. That's the basis. If Luffy is the sun god, Emu is the god of the night, the god of witchcraft, the god of power of rebirth, the god of life and death, right? The power of in between. All right. I'm gonna end the video there. I think it makes sense. I want to hear what your thoughts are. So thank you so much for making it this far into the video. Make sure to hit like if you got this far, especially. Right? Subscribe for more because I want to engage. But I'm like, am I not cooking? Am I not cooking? Am I not cooking? All right. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.